If you're following me home one day, you can probably tell the kind of day I've had. And you can tell the kind of day I've had because there's this little store that is just getting off the highway coming to my house. And on the days when things have gone well, when I'm excited to get home, when I've got some stuff to tell the family, I get off the highway and I breeze by that heading home. But if it's been one of those days, you know those days that you've had where things just hadn't quite gone the way you thought it should have, when things just didn't work out, and it's been one of those stressful days, oh yeah, I stop off. Yeah. That's my buffering behavior. That's the behavior I do that buffers me. It keeps me away from the emotions that I'm feeling, that I don't want to feel. And that's what we're talking about tonight. You've probably been there. You've probably used some of these mechanisms, some of these behaviors, these buffering behaviors in your life as well. You know, when you just need to take a break, when you just need to get away, when you just need to forget for just a little while, we buffer. And so the goal, though, as we move into health, as we move into New Year, New You, as we continue in New Year, New You, is how do we switch from buffering behaviors to coping? And that's what we're talking about tonight here on Dwain Woode MD Live. Hey, if you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, New Year, New You, I'm talking to adults with type 2 diabetes who want to put their diabetes in remission, who want to get off of diabetes medications, who want to reverse, that's right, their diabetes. Welcome to the show. If you're new, also go ahead and put new in the comments because we'd love to welcome you with a hand clap and some music. And just let you know that we are happy that you're here. If you do have questions, go ahead and drop those in the comments because we'd love to be able to answer those for you as we move throughout the show, this episode of our show. Welcome, wherever you're joining us from. We are streaming on, of course, here on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitch, on LinkedIn. Where else are we streaming? I think that's it. Probably 4 or 5 different places right now. If you know somebody who needs to be here, go ahead and send them the link. Let them know, hey, you got to come over and hang out with us here on Dwain Woode MD Live. Let's hop over and let's say hello to some of our community members that I see out there. Let's see. Of course, we had Teresa come in and she said, hey, Doctor and everyone. Teresa, glad that you're here. Thank you for hanging out with us. And then I saw Steve and Pamela who were here even before the show started. So thank you guys for joining us as well. Okay. And let me just say this at the beginning of the show. The last couple of shows we've had, our stream has been interrupted. So I apologize for that. If that happens again, we will continue going and then we'll post that stream. I do love the interaction that we have. We've been having some technical issues and we're working on that. But for now, hey, I'm glad that you're here. So if that happens, don't just disregard it. The stream is coming out. We'll keep going and then we'll post that as we get later into the evening. All right. Okay, so as you know how we do, right? So I've got some things that we're going to take a look at. I've got my monitors that are off to the side. I've got my report that's down below that we're going to take a look at here in just a minute and see what has been going on with my blood sugars over the last several days since we had our check-in last week. Remember, go back and watch our show. Our last show was getting into how can we ensure that we are setting ourselves up for success as we move into the final stretch of the year, right? As we get into this season, but also how do we set ourselves up for success in the long term? And today's show that we're talking about today is actually a block in that process, right? So remember, we're always building. We're trying to build better, more sturdy, more resilient, more flexible, more consistent versions of ourselves. And all the things that we're learning in New Year, New You is in keeping with that theme, because we're setting ourselves up for not just success today, not just success tomorrow, but we're setting ourselves up for long-term success. So make sure you go back and you watch that episode. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at some of my numbers. And you'll see there my blood sugar, my glucose is on the Libre on your screen, and that is my Libre 3, and it says 123. You'll see a little spike there, and I think you won't be able to see it on this, but when we get to the Dexcom, we'll be able to see that a little bit more. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So here's my Dexcom, and let me hop over and tell you something I did while I'm doing that. So as you know, I wear right now. I've got 3 monitors. Can you see them? Right, 2 on this side and 1 on this side. Usually I have 2 on this side, and usually I was wearing the Dexcom G7 and the Stello on this arm, and I wore the Libre on this side. Well, I always wore the Libre on this side, and I always wore the Stello and the Dexcom on this side. And so someone said to me, well, hey, is there a difference between the arms? Right now, I wouldn't expect that there would be a difference. So what I did the last time I needed to change the the Dexcom, I put it over on this side, and so now both it and the Libre are in close proximity to each other. And so what you're seeing right now is the Dexcom showing a 64, and right above it is the Libre showing 123. All right, so about 41 point difference between the two of them. And then let's go ahead and see the Stello, which is on the other arm, and it's saying 157. So it's in keeping more with what the Dexcom is saying, and the Libre is right now the odd man out. But oh, wow, you weren't seeing that. Yeah, so there it is. 157 for the Stello, and then let's go back there. 123 for the Libre, and then 164 for the 164 for the Dexcom. Okay, and then let's go ahead and let's take a look at, here is my Keto Mojo and my Contour. Let's go ahead and do those quickly, and I'm just gonna grab one of these strips, pop that in there, and then grab this is the Keto Mojo test strip. Get those going, and as you guys saw the last several shows that we've had, I've not had pretty good success in getting a drop of blood. So we're gonna see how that goes tonight. Make sure my hands are, I should have run it under some water before I came on. Okay, so let's go through it. So lancing device, right? You turn off the top, and it's spring loaded. So when I press the lever, it'll deploy the lancet, which is in here. It'll give me a poke on one of my fingers. And let's go ahead and let's move over here, and let's see. Let's pick this finger. Let's see what we got. All right, let's see if that gave us what we needed in terms of, okay, so that's a pretty good drop. Let's get that one going, get this one going. And if you are out there and you're fasting, by the way, go ahead and tell us, are you out of a fast, just came out of fast, going into a fast? And then I'm always interested in knowing, for those of you who are monitoring your ketones, what your ketones are. So Steve, I see you out there. Tell us what your ketones are. All right, so 154 for the Keto Mojo, and then 152. And let's get a ketone strip in there. And let's make sure we still have a good drop of blood. Ah, it looks like it's drying, y'all. Oh, we're gonna see if we can get one on there. Let's see. Nope. think that dried too much. Oops. All right, so I'm going to have to get another strip. That's what I get for talking. See how quickly that dries, by the way? All right, so we got that one. I need to get another lancet. Open that one up. And I think I'm going to use the same finger. All right, there we go. And there we go. That is a good drop. Okay, so what do you think my ketones are going to be? So I have not been fasting since I ended fasting on Friday. All right, so let's hop back over here. Awesome. All right. Okay, so we're gonna hop over and do our discussion, but let's see. That's Empower Clinical Weight Loss is here. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us. And let's see, we've got day 3 of fast. What? Okay, here's a hand clap for you. Day 3 of fast. And are you Empower? Are you keeping track of ketones? Are you keeping track of ketones? Just drop that in the comments for us. And then if you are, what were your ketones when you most recently checked them? All right. While we and we'll come back, we'll look at that here in a minute. But we're talking about coping or avoiding. Coping or avoiding. Coping or avoiding. Well, when we talk about coping mechanisms, and to give a little backdrop to the whole concept that we are doing tonight, I want to go back and I want to talk about our triggers. Our triggers that we've talked about in terms of our heat model are those things that push us off of our eating plan, push us off of our desire to whatever it is, right? And so in our space, we've been talking about fasting as one of those tools, right? We've been using fasting as a tool. But remember, we did shows on the ketogenic diet. We've done shows on the Mediterranean and paleo and low carb. We've done shows on different methods of fasting. So whatever the plan, the eating plan that you have, it counts, right? In terms of things that push us off of it. You may not particularly be on an eating plan, but you are trying to, you're trying to avoid sweets, right? Remember, one of our challenges was that we're not eating anything with added sugar. You may be decided that you wanted to have a meal or create a eating plan that's low in fat or low in whatever it is that you have. Or you may have some dietary restrictions that have nothing to do with what you personally want, but some medical issue is causing that to happen. Okay, let me pop back over here. So we have people who are allergic to peanuts, people who have celiac disease, people who are allergic to wheat and dairy. And so there are all these things that are there. And so you personally may have something that is requiring you to eat in a certain way. Okay, so let's start there. And because there are some things that you are not eating, there are triggers that potentially can push you in a direction to eat something that you say you're not going to eat. Whether that's for a medical reason, a health reason, or you're following along with us, New Year, New You, or you just have decided to be healthy and you're making some changes. Everybody got that so far? So whatever it is, the heat model applies to you, because there are things that you are going to want to eat simply because of habit. If you used to eat them and you now have decided not to eat them, or you used to eat them and then the doctor said, hey, because of a disease process, you can't eat them, whether it's an allergy, or hey, you should avoid them as much as you possibly can, You're still going to want to eat those things because of habit, because you're used to eating them. Other people around you are eating them. There are social cues that will push you to eat them. There are commercials that are there that will trigger you to want to eat them. Habits, emotions. When we get tired and frustrated and bored and on and on and on, then those emotions will push through some of the decisions we've made. I was talking to somebody today in the office, and they were asking me, why is it that some people don't have good success with things like Mounjaro and Ozempic and Wegovy and Zepbound and all of those weight management medications that are out there? Why is it that they don't have success? And so as you begin talking to people, you'll find that a lot of people are not having success. Not all of them. A lot of people are not having success because they're still eating. They're like, well, that doesn't work for me. Everybody, my friend said, my cousin said, my sister said, my mama said, my brother said, everybody says that it works for them. It suppresses their appetite, but it doesn't suppress my appetite. And the answer that we're asking is why? Why is it not suppressing your appetite? What is going on with your appetite? What is stimulating your appetite? What is the thing that is the supercharging your appetite, that desire, that craving, that desire for food is pushing through what the medication does? Those emotions. And then the access, there's things around us. We eat because of sight. We see things there. Oh, I'm going to eat that. Not because we're hungry. And matter of fact, I was coming tonight to talk about the coping mechanisms. And I was at the hospital. And just as I was preparing to, wrapping up the afternoon, I've got a consult. Well, I got a consult earlier. And then I got another consult. And then I got another consult. And then I got another consult. And I'm thinking, okay, so I've got to go see these consults and then leave early and then get home, get ready for the show and all those things. So all that's going in my mind. So I went down to the hospital to see the consult. And as I was walking to the room to go see one of the patients, I noticed that the cafeteria was open. I'm not hungry, y'all. We just ate lunch like 3 hours ago. And I stopped in and I was going to grab one of my trusty teas, right? That was my plan. And when I got in there, I saw, hey, wait a minute. They're serving food, okay? And let me see. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna come back to this screen and show this to you. Look at this. So look at that. Look right there. All right, see there? 140. And so I said, hey, let me get something to eat. So I got a couple of chicken fingers. And look at that right there. And that had nothing to do with hunger. But what do you think was going on? What do you think was happening in my head? What do you think was going on in my mind? Right? I was fighting the emotion and I was fighting the access. And then, of course, we eat because of taste. So why do we eat? And so the question is, are you coping or are you avoiding? Right? Are you coping or are you avoiding? So how do you handle stress? How do you personally handle stress? How do you handle anxiety? How do you handle difficult emotions? So remember, we are depressed about the past, we're anxious about the future, and we worry and stress over the present. So that's how it happens. And so how do you handle those emotions? Because a big component of the HEAT model is those are emotions. And we buffer, and we'll talk about what buffering means. I keep throwing that word out. What does buffering mean? But we turn to distractions, like food. Food is the last socially acceptable vice. Right? So we turn to food. We turn to TV. I can't tell you the number of times that I'm trying to get out of my head and I'm trying to, basically veg out, and I'll put something on, or I'll grab my phone and I'll go on and look at something on Netflix. What am I doing? I'm avoiding. So today, I want to explore how do we start coping effectively? So let's talk. So buffering. What are buffering behaviors? Buffering of behaviors are behaviors that help us avoid uncomfortable emotions or stress through distractions. Right? They distract us. So we're not dealing with the emotion. We're not dealing with the thing itself, but we're just taking our mind off of it. Now, one of the things that we'll see is that some buffering behaviors fall into both categories of buffering and also coping, and it all depends on what we're using it, how we're using it, and what our intention is. Right? So examples of buffering behavior, emotional eating. So that's what I did today as I walked by the cafeteria, walked into the cafeteria, got those chicken fingers. Right? Emotional eating. We binge watch. So you get our phone and we just kind of begin scrolling. Or we sit and we watch, a whole series of whatever it is. Those are buffering behaviors. So why do we buffer? Because buffering provides short-term relief from emotional discomfort. We don't like to feel discomfort. And so we use buffering as a way of getting by or getting around that. Now, here's a point. I guess let me pause and make a couple of comments. So we're going to be talking about behaviors. We're going to be talking about mechanisms. We're going to be talking about a protocol for being able to switch from buffering to coping, right? So how do we make that switch? But one of the things to understand, and one of the things that we have got to learn, is that it is okay to be uncomfortable and not need to get out of the discomfort. Oh, what are you saying? What are you saying, Dr. Woode? So let me go through that again. So we buffer because we don't want to feel. That is uncomfortable. That is whatever it is, right? Lonely, tired, frustrated, mad, glad, whatever it is, we don't want to feel that. Or we're already there and we're trying to soothe ourselves. And so we do the buffering behavior. And so what we're suggesting is, instead of buffering, because buffering is that negative thing that you're doing, we're suggesting that you use a coping mechanism, which is, right, so a positive spin on the whole idea. But here's the question. Who says that every time you feel an emotion, you need to get out of the emotion? Right? So we've not learned how to cope with emotions, many of us, and I'm throwing myself in that category. But we always are trying to get out of the emotion. Anytime something is difficult, anytime something is uncomfortable, our first tendency is to say, let me get out of it. And I want to suggest that there are times when you don't need a buffering behavior. You don't need a coping mechanism. It is just what it is. And it's okay to feel that feeling until it goes away. Right? That's a whole show by itself right there. Right? So feel the feeling until it goes away. That's okay. Having said that, as we are talking about buffering, right? So how, moving from buffering to coping mechanisms is what we want to do. So, right. So buffering provides short-term relief from emotional discomfort. The problem with buffering is it doesn't address the root cause of the emotion. It doesn't address the thing. So when you finish binge watching, the thing is still there. When you finish eating the ice cream, the thing is still there. When you finish eating the cake and the cookies and the candy, it is still there. When you finish scrolling on social media, it's still there. When you finish drinking the alcohol, when you finish using the drugs, It is still there. The buffering behavior does not fix the root cause. But the buffering behavior can lead to long-term stress and other health problems, right? Because when you finish eating the cookies and the candies and the cake, and the next time you feel that feeling, you're going to go and you're going to eat the cookies, candies, and cake. And the next time you feel that feeling, you're going to eat the ice cream, cookies, candies, and cake. And your body gets used to that. And after a while, you look up and you've put on 20, 30, 40 pounds. And now there is mental stress over the physical state that you've created from the buffering behavior. So that's why buffering is a problem. It's not that the buffering is not going to, for that moment, take you away from it. It is. That's why we use it. And it is good at doing that. That's why we use it. And our body remembers that. That's why we use it. But ultimately, it is not a long-term solution for the feeling. It's not a long-term solution for the emotion. So what are coping mechanisms? Well, coping mechanisms are strategies to process and manage emotions constructively. So as we said, buffering behaviors are those behaviors that manage it for the moment, but they don't actually deal with the situation. Coping mechanisms, on the other hand, allow you to put processes in place where you're managing that emotion that you're feeling. Buffering avoids it. Say, I don't want to think about being mad. I don't want to think about being depressed. I don't want to think about being stressed. I don't want to think about being anxious. I don't want to think about it. Just take it out of my mind. Coping, on the other hand, says, no, let's deal with it. Let's find a good way of dealing with it. Examples of coping mechanism: mindfulness. Right? And we've talked about mindfulness in this space. We'll come back and we'll do it again. Journaling is another coping mechanism. Deep breathing exercises. Is another coping mechanism. So what I'm doing is I am dealing with the emotion. I'm feeling that emotion and I'm figuring out, what do I do with it? Now, I may decide that I'm going to sit in the space with the emotion. I can decide that. But I'm deciding to do that. I'm just not buffering, right? So buffer has the connotation of there's something that's between me and the emotion, and so I'm not feeling it. But my coping says, no, I'm confronting it. I am present. I'm present center with that. And then I decide what I'm going to do with it. And so why do coping mechanisms work? Because they help you confront the emotion, right? That's like I say. It helps us build emotional resilience. Let me go back and let me talk about something that we all have probably heard about, or if you have kids you've seen, or if you've got nieces and nephews, grandchildren, whatever, right? So when kids are small, there's this struggle that goes on with parents and children. And the child doesn't want to go to sleep. The child doesn't want to go to sleep. But the parent wants the child to go to sleep. Got it so far? And so we put the child in the room. We put them in the bassinet. We put them in the crib, whatever it is. And we leave. And as soon as we leave, the child starts crying. Right? I remember that happened to us. And so there's always this struggle. Do I let the child cry, or do I go and soothe and comfort the child? And all the experts say that you should let the child cry, because ultimately the child's going to stop crying. And the idea behind that is that the child learns to soothe themselves. Wow. What are you talking about, Dr. Woode? The child has to learn that feeling will go away. That I can, in myself, soothe myself without having mom or dad come pick me up so I feel that. And ultimately, a lot of us, as we grow, never really learn how to soothe ourselves. We never learn to be in the space with the emotion, just like that child, that baby. And so we're always looking for something outside of us to soothe us. That's why a lot of times we develop buffering behaviors. But mindfulness, journaling, deep breathing, all those things help us confront and helps us to deal with the emotions, and it helps us to build emotional resilience. That's the point I was making a minute ago, right? So within ourselves, we are resilient. We can bounce into things. Things may not go the way we want, and we can bounce back because we have mechanisms. And we are able to make healthier decisions because the decision is no longer being made. The decision is no longer being made to avoid the emotion, right? Because that can be a buffering behavior. Well, I'm not going to make that decision because I don't like the emotion that's going to come for it. Oh, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to venture in that area. I'm not going to get that degree. I'm not going to open the business. I'm not going to start the podcast. I'm not going to write the book. I'm not going to run for office. I'm not going to get on the committee because I don't have the capacity. I don't have the resources. I don't have the tools to deal with the emotions that come from whatever situation comes up in that space. So I'm going to avoid the space. Notice the cascade. And so the goal with these behaviors, with these mechanisms, I guess I should say, the goal is to shift from buffering to coping for long-term well-being. Because remember, we're all about the new us, new year, new you, new year, new me, new year, new us. So we don't want to continue doing those same things. So how do we move? How do we move from that space? And so what I want to introduce you to is the COPE model. And the COPE is a play on coping, right? COPE, C-O-P-E, coping. And COPE is a tool to help you manage emotions and stress. Now, you will go out and you can read and you'll find COPE being applied in lots of different places. But this COPE is a COPE that we have put together specifically for this space, for New Year, New You, for Dwain Woode, MD. So the concepts, you'll find them in lots of places, but we've kind of organized them in this area so that we can begin using them for our success. So COPE is a tool. COPE is a tool. Remember, another one of those tools, because we educate, we empower with tools. It's a tool to help you manage emotions and stress. It's a way to help you shift from being reactive and avoidant to healthy coping behaviors, right? Hence the COPE. So we no longer want to buffer. We want to confront. We want to be in the space with our emotions. We want to be able to feel the emotions and yet be able to manage them. And COPE gives us that protocol for doing that. And COPE stands for connect. The C is for connect. You want to connect with your emotions, right? Remember we said we want to be present with them. We want to observe our thoughts and our body. So that emotion that we're having, right? Connect with the emotion. We want to observe what it's doing in our body and in our thoughts. We want to pause before we react, because if we react, we're going to grab the candy, we're going to grab the cookie, we're going to grab the ice cream, we're going to go down to the cafeteria, we're going to get the chicken fingers. And then we want to evaluate our response to see if that mechanism, if that thing we did, if that transition that we made, is it working? So connect, observe, pause, and then evaluate. So step one, connect. Step one, connect. And we're going to jump down to that bottom sentence that you see there, right? This step is all about pausing to acknowledge what you're feeling at any given moment. That's the goal for this step. What am I feeling at this moment? So you want to pause and ask yourself, what am I really feeling? What trigger is in play? What's causing me? And I'll tell you, when I was in the middle, by the way, of eating the chicken fingers. I was eating the chicken fingers and I was thinking about finishing the chicken fingers so I can come do the show. And I said, wait a minute. I can use the cope right here. Right? Notice, right? So, and it takes practice. Hey, that's what it is. So what am I feeling? Identify what's going on. And so in my head, I'm like, okay, what just happened? Well, I was excited because I was getting ready to leave to come do the show. I was getting my stuff ready. I knew I had a consult at the hospital. And I knew that I had to see the consult. Either I could come do the show and go back do the consult. But then the second one came, and I still was possible to do that. And then the third one came. I was like, okay, wait a minute. And then the fourth one came. Right? And so now my brain is like, okay, how do I manage that? And so I didn't pause. I until until later, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? So I'm a little stressed. I'm anxious. I've got some stuff I've got to do to get home and get ready for the show, and right. So I'm going through all that, and so now I'm identifying what am I really feeling. I'm not hungry. I know I'm not hungry. But when I first started the process, my brain told me I was hungry. And the goal of this is to become aware of your emotional state before you react. So that you pause before you eat the ice cream. So we want to connect, right? Connect with ourselves. This takes emotional intelligence. It takes mindfulness. See how those tools kind of come back into play? And then we want to observe. What are our thoughts and what's going on in our bodies? Notice the physical sensation. Is my head hot? Are my ears hot? Am I breathing fast? Is my heart beating fast? Do I have churning in my stomach? Are my arms crampy? Are my knees weak? Right? So we want to assess what's going on in my body and what's in my mind. Right? Have you ever been in a situation where something happened, like something happened right now, and you go and you're moving along through your day or through that hour or whatever, and all of a sudden your brain is thinking about something that happened like 20 years ago or 2 years ago or some other situation? So this situation triggered the memory of that. So what's going on? What did that thing, what did that stress, what did that whatever do to my body? And what did it do to my mind? So you want to pay attention to your thoughts. Are you overthinking or are you worrying? So this step involves observing the physical and mental cues associated with your emotions. Observing it helps you see the emotion without judging it. Now we're going to come here in a minute and say, okay, what am I feeling? I don't need to judge whether I should be feeling that, whether it's an appropriate feeling. All I need to do is, okay, this is what I'm feeling. I'm just putting a name to it. And then the pause, right? So we connect, we observe, we're going to pause before reacting, and pausing creates space between your emotion and the reaction. Often emotion happens, reaction occurs. Emotion happens, we go to the reaction. Emotions happens, and it's an automatic process that we get to the reaction. And the pausing allows some space between those two. Do you know that that's one of the benefits of all the medications that people talk about in terms of weight management? You know what they do? They make you pause. So the urge to eat is not as intense. And so people are able to pause for a moment. They have now the capacity to do that, and often they make the decision not to eat. So it isn't the thing that stopped them from eating, but the thing allowed them some space so they could think. And when they thought about it, they made the decision that they were not going to eat. So it wasn't the medication that caused them not to eat. It gave them, it quieted the noise. So the pause creates space between you and your emotions and the reaction. So you want to pause. Take 5 minutes. Pause. Breathe. Walk. Step away. Right? They say count to 5. You've kind of heard that. And the whole idea behind those types of behaviors is we're counting, and what we're doing is we're giving ourselves space. And the goal is to interrupt the automatic reactions and choose a healthier response. Because if we react, we're choosing a buffering behavior. If we're able to pause and breathe and put that space, then we end up choosing a coping mechanism. And then step four is to evaluate your response. So after you've paused, after you've gone through the process, then you ask yourself, did this coping strategy help? How do I feel now? What is my emotional and what is my physical state right now? And the goal here is to learn from each experience to handle the future experiences. And the key to this one is to reflect on how you handle the emotions and the coping mechanisms you choose. How do you handle it? Now we'll come back and we'll talk about creating a toolbox of coping mechanisms. Right? So that you don't have to create it each time, create the mechanism each time, but think, okay, what should I do now? Which mechanism should I use now? No, we want a toolbox, so we stick our hand in the toolbox at the time when things are going on, pull anything out. We don't want to be creating those on at the time. We want to already have them so that we can access them. And for instance, this paradigm that we're talking about, coping, the reason for discussing it is so that you now have this tool as part of your toolbox. And so when things are going on, you say, okay, all right, let me go through the cope. Let me connect. Let me observe. Let me pause. Okay, now that I've done that, how do I feel? Okay. So let's run through and let's talk about a quick scenario. Imagine you've just come home after a long, stressful day at work. You feel overwhelmed, right? Kind of like when I'm driving home and I stop at that store. You feel overwhelmed, you feel tense. As soon as you get through the door, you head straight to the kitchen and you grab a bag of chips. Or you stop at the store and you pick up whatever they have over there. I'm not going to say what they have. This is a classic buffering behavior. Using food to avoid and to numb the stressful emotions that you're feeling. Right? You've probably been there. You've done it before. We've all done it. And so the question is, how do we apply the COPE principle to this? So step one is connect. So connect with your emotions. So instead of immediately grabbing the chips, you stop and you ask yourself, okay, what am I really feeling? I'm not hungry because I wasn't hungry. Right? Recognize that you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed from your workday. It's not hunger. Ask, is this physical hunger or is this emotional? And often we'll come up with, okay, this is emotional. And this is where we've got to also understand. So go back and look at the shows where we talk about hunger versus our cravings. Because you got to understand that. So remember, frame shift. We're looking at our mind. How do we change what we think? So is this hunger, physical hunger, or is it emotional? What are the physical cues? You say, well, wait a minute. I'm not hungry because my stomach isn't growling. It hasn't been long since I ate my last meal. And the urge, you say, okay, it's emotional. It's not physical. So you connect. Next is you observe your thoughts and your body. What's happening in your body and your mind? Your shoulders are tense. There's a knot in your stomach. Right? But it's not stress, it's not hunger. Okay, yeah, what's going on? Notice your thoughts. You realize that you're replaying that stressful conversation with your boss. And the more you play it, it's making you feel frustrated. It makes you feel anxious. Remember, I asked you, have you ever been in a situation where something happened and you've gone past it only to have your brain go somewhere else? And you find yourself all of a sudden, we're replaying this or replaying that. So we connect, we observe, and then we pause. Now it's time to pause before you react. Instead of grabbing the chips, you take 5 minutes, you break, you step away from the kitchen, you take a few deep breaths, you do a simple breathing exercise. During that time, what you're doing is you're calming your mind, you're calming your body, you're allowing the urges to kind of subside. I've told you before that when I'm ready to go somewhere, when I've got to get away, I go to St. Simon's Island. I should have gone there today before I ate those chicken fingers. Breathing exercises. Inhale for 4 seconds. Exhale for 4 seconds. Well, inhale, hold it, and exhale for 4 seconds. Inhale, hold, exhale. And repeat that until you feel more centered. And then we evaluate the response. Evaluate how you feel and reflect on the effectiveness of this particular mechanism that you chose. Remember, we said we're going to come back, we're going to talk about other mechanisms. But the one that you chose, whatever it is, how do you feel? How do you feel now that you took the pause instead of eating? So in this case, the outcome is the breathing exercise helped lower your stress levels. The craving for food has passed. You didn't need the chips. You needed to manage the stress. Right? That's what you needed. And as you reflect, you handle the emotion in a healthier way without turning to food. You're now calmer and you're ready to focus on something productive, like going for a walk, reading a book, relaxing, whatever it is. But once you finish eating the chips, you would have had those calories in, you would have spiked the blood sugar, and now you still have to deal with the emotions anyway. So you recognize that emotional eating is a sign of stress and not that you're hungry. And next time it becomes more familiar. So the more you do it, the easier it is for you to react. Not react, but more even it is for you to go through that process and be successful. Okay, so evaluate your response. And so by applying the COPE model, you were able to connect with the real emotion behind your urge to eat, which was stress. You observed the physical sensation and thoughts associated with it. You paused to create a space between the emotion and the reaction, emotional eating, right? So we paused to that. And then we evaluated how this healthier coping strategy worked. And that reinforced a new pattern. So when we're talking about the cope mechanism and putting it into practice, we start with a single trigger, right? We're going to practice that or emotional situation. So start with a single thing. Don't go into try to figure out the whole complex, right? Start even within the complex thing that's going on. Find a single trigger and let's evaluate that. Let's just cope on that. Now, as you get more and more adept at using the cope mechanism, then you'll be able to expand it. But start with something simple. Use the cope mechanism on that to connect, observe, pause, evaluate. And you want to practice this daily. Daily. We'll come back and we'll talk more about cope in the future, right? We'll have more shows because we'll go in depth on each of the components, connecting and observing and pausing and evaluating. We'll go through all of those and give you a blueprint on what to do on a regular basis. But just quickly, let's go through that on a daily basis, right? A daily check-in. So morning, connect with your emotions. Figure out, okay, where am I? During the day, apply cope to stressful moments, right? Find a moment and apply cope to it. Now you may have several stressful moments, but find one, pick one, and let's say, okay, I'm using cope on this. In the evening, reflect on how you handled the emotion, and then track your progress with a cope journal. And we're gonna, when we meet next time, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna have a cope journal sheet that you can download, that you can use and fill in every time you use a cope. Right? Go ahead and fill that in so that you could begin learning to process that as part of what you do. Yeah. Cope. So what we want to do is we want to once again move from buffering behavior into coping mechanisms, because long term that sets us up for better success. All right, so let's see. Let's hop over and let's take a look at my my clarity. And as you guys know, when I talk, the clarity logs out. So let's go ahead and log back in. Let's log back in, and while that's coming up, okay. And then we'll come back and we'll take a look at what my blood sugar, or what my ketones are. All right, so you'll see on the screen, let's do this one. Yeah, here we go. Let's do this one. So you'll see on the screen there, this is my Dexcom Clarity. Let me turn my mouse on so you guys can, so I can point. And you see my average blood sugar over the last 2 weeks is 130. I've been in target 91% of the time. And that target is 70 to 180. If I change this from 14 days to 90 days, that should be 135 or something like that. 133. All right, I'm in target, okay, 86% of the time, so that hasn't changed. And it says that my glucose management indicator is 6.5. And so the glucose management indicator is the surrogate for what my A1C would be. So if I got an A1C now, then it's estimating that that's what it would be. If I look at my daily graphs, so we can see what my blood sugars have been doing over the last several days. So I stopped fasting, so Friday evening, right in here somewhere. And you saw the blood sugars climbed up. And then Saturday morning, we got up to 140s, 150s, 160s, 120s to 130s, 160s. And the bottom graph, that's the Stello. And the top graph that you're seeing there, that's the Dexcom G7. And so we stayed in the 30s, 40s, according to the G7, 60s. Stello said that we were in the 30s, 40s maybe. And then in the evening, we started spiking up, and I don't remember what I ate. Probably nuts. And so we kind of went 180s, and then Sunday, blood sugars went down. And here you'll see that one graph, and this was because my Dexcom went out. I had one in my bag that I went out, and we were busy all day, so I didn't put it on. And so the Stello was still going. And then I came back and I put it on right here about 1 o'clock in the morning. And so you start to see two graphs again. All right, and then this is where we are right now. So that's my Dexcom Clarity. So let's hop over and let's take a look at my Keto Mojo, and let's go ahead and turn that Keto Mojo on. Boom, boom, boom. And let's go ahead and get it synced. So if you think you know what my, if you think you know what my ketones are going to be, go ahead and drop those in the comments. All right, let's see. So the drum roll. So my blood sugar is 154 and ketones are low. Okay. And so that should make sense with for you. Let's take a look at the graph. So the tan line, those are blood sugars, and the turquoise line, those are ketones. So as my blood sugar has gone up, the ketones have gone down. Blood sugar goes up, ketones go down. And that's because when blood sugars go up, insulin has to come out to treat those blood sugars, and insulin and ketones can't exist in the same space. So when we talk about ketones, ketones that are, like we go back to one of these other days, so ketones that are less than zero point 0.5 are considered normal. For instance, here, less than 0.5 is low, considered normal. 0.5 to 1.5 considered nutritional ketosis, and then above 1.5 is considered therapeutic ketosis. And so right now I'm in the normal range. And so my goal usually post-fast is to kind of remain in ketosis as long as I can, and then I go through my regular day eating, like we normally eat, and then when I fast, then my ketones start going back down. Okay, awesome. All right. So that's our that is the process of moving from buffering to coping. So are you coping? COPE. COPE is the acronym for this model that we're using. Are you coping? COPE. And that stands for connect, observe, right? Pause, and evaluate. The coping mechanism. All right. And so remember that within our space, within your fingertips, within you is the ability to create your wellness destiny, to create your health destiny, to create your metabolic destiny. You have the ability to do that. You have unlimited ability to do that. And that comes through education, empowerment, and encouragement, which is our triple E formula for success here on the channel. We educate, we empower, and we encourage. We educate with the shows that we do. We empower with the tools that we learn, just like we learned the COPE mechanism tonight. That's another tool in your bag. And we encourage with the community that you are a part of. When you come to the community, we want to make sure that you are joining the challenges. And every month we have a challenge so that you can join us. And our challenge for this month, let me put that up, is to figure out what is one of your non-negotiables. Remember we talked about non-negotiable. Those are the things that you say, okay, I'm not getting around this. I'm not finding a way to avoid this. What is the one non-negotiable that you are putting in place for your health? What's a non-negotiable, right? So that for you it may be, I am not eating after a particular time, or I'm fasting on Tuesdays, or I am for this month not going to eat ice cream. Whatever it is, right? I want you to find that non-negotiable, and I want you to do that on a daily basis for this month. Okay? What is your non-negotiable? So that's one of the challenges for this month. And also, when you come to the show, show up, tell your story. Let us know how successful you are. Let us know where you are having good results in your weight, in your A1C, blood sugars, getting off of medication, being able to sleep better. All of those things we want to know, because we want to celebrate with you. And it encourages us, because now we know that if you can do it, then we can do it as well. If you're having challenges, let us know that as well, because we can rally around you as this community, and we can make sure that we are putting our arms around you, and you know that you're not alone, and we know that we're not alone, because the community is there to support us. And then invite someone to this space. Invite a friend, invite a family member, invite your brother, your sister, your mom, your physician. Let them know, hey, there's a space we can go where we can be metabolically successful. Send them a link. Say, hey, let's watch this together. Let's go through this series together. The New Year, New You series. It's ongoing. Come on. Right? Out on the channel, there's the playlist for all the shows we've done. And then, of course, there's the playlist for all the fasting that we've done. How to fast successfully. And then remember our pillars for reversing diabetes. We decrease insulin. we suppress the appetite and we reduce sugar. That is the crux of how we are being successful in our metabolic space. As always, y'all, I'm happy to be here to hang out with you. Please make sure you check us again later this week as we do our check-ins, as we do our videos from the vault Saturday night at 9 o'clock p.m. And then this week in review on Sunday morning. And of course, always here on Dwain Woode MD Live Mondays at 7 p.m. Central. But we'll chat you on Wednesday when we do our check-in. Make sure you join us. Hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. On the channel here, we educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, new you. Good night, everybody.